Throughout today's conference, we've explored how erasure operates on a global scale in media narratives, historic retellings, and the construction of identity. But sometimes the most immediate and personal forms of erasure happen much closer to home in everyday spaces like college campuses. For many Hindu students, universities, which are supposed to be places of inclusion and open dialogue, can become environments where their identity is misunderstood, marginalized, or erased altogether. Whether through bias in classroom discussions, the exclusion of Hindu festivals, or the stereotyping of Hindu traditions, these experiences often go unseen, yet they have a profound impact. Our next speaker is someone who has directly confronted these challenges while working to create positive change. Pranav Patel ji is an undergraduate student at the University of Texas at Dallas, pursuing a degree in finance. As the president of Hindu YUVA at UTD, he has been a driving force behind efforts to advocate for Hindu identity, address misconceptions, and create a safe space for Hindu voices on campus. His leadership has been instrumental in co-hosting this very conference, demonstrating his commitment to fostering informed conversation and meaningful change both within the Hindu community and beyond. Pranavji is deeply passionate about exploring religion, philosophy, and politics, and he believes in progressing toward a dharmic-centric way of life, one that emphasizes truth, compassion, and collective upliftment. Today, he will share insights into the unseen biases that Hindu students face on campus and how this form of erasure affects identity, belonging, and campus culture. Please join me in welcoming Pranav ji.
Namaste, everyone. I want you to imagine something for me real quick. Imagine walking into a history class where your culture is being discussed, not with curiosity, not with nuance, but as a set of problems to be solved. Imagine flipping through a textbook and finding that the religion, the civilization, the philosophy that shaped your family and your identity is reduced to a few paragraphs on caste oppression and idol worship. Imagine speaking up about the discrimination you faced, only to be told that it doesn't exist. Scary, right? This is the reality for many Hindu students on college campuses today. This is Hinduphobia through erasure. Not outright hate, but something much more insidious. It's the quiet, systematic removal of Hindu voices from academic spaces, from historical narratives, and from social discourse. Today, we're going to talk about it. We'll go over many things. Things like what Hinduphobia through erasure is, how it manifests in universities, the deep psychological, social, and academic impact it has on students, how it's been institutionalized, the historical roots of this issue, the geopolitical influences affecting perceptions of Hinduism, the tactics used to silence Hindu students, how campus activism selectively excludes Hindu voices, the role of media and academic institutions in perpetuating bias, how academic spaces promote a sense of alienation among Hindu students, and lastly, what we can do to stop it. By the end of this presentation or speech, I hope you'll be able to understand that erasure is not passive. It's active, it's dangerous, and it's affecting thousands of students right now. So firstly, what is Hinduphobia through erasure? Hinduphobia is often misunderstood. People assume it only means direct hate speech or violence. But what if I told you that an even more dangerous form of Hinduphobia is one that makes you question your own existence? Erasure is not just about what is said, it's about what is left unsaid. It's when Hindu contributions to science, mathematics, and philosophy are ignored in favor of colonial narratives that paint India as backwards before British intervention. It's when discussions on religion portray Hinduism as exotic or mystical rather than as a sophisticated living tradition. It's when Hindu students are told that their concerns about discrimination are invalid or politically inconvenient. It's when a religion with over 1 billion followers, one of the oldest in the world, one of the richest in history, is dismissed as if it's a relic of the past. It's when stories of Hindu resilience and survival against historical oppression are omitted from curriculums, giving an incomplete picture of India's past. It's when Hindu students are made to feel guilty or responsible for historical grievances that have been distorted to fit modern political narratives. It's when Hindu practices such as yoga and meditation are appropriated and stripped of their spiritual roots, reducing them to a mere wellness trend. It's when the profound philosophical depth of Hinduism, from Advaita Vedanta to Bhakti traditions, is overlooked in favor of oversimplified portrayals. This is how Hinduphobia operates, not by attacking outright, but by making Hindus invisible. I'll go over a couple modern and very relevant examples. First are textbook inaccuracies and omissions, or historical revisionism. In many textbooks, the destruction of Hindu mandirs during colonial rule or Islamic invasions are barely acknowledged. The magnitude of the trauma caused by the forced conversions, mass killings, and cultural erasure is left out, creating a very, very skewed historical narrative that casts Hindus as passive victims or even complicit in their own oppression. Contribution to science and mathematics. Pioneering Indian scientists like mathematicians like Aryabhatta, Srinivasa Ramanujan, and Brahmagupta are often relegated to footnotes, with their contributions either downplayed or attributed to European influences. These figures were instrumental in shaping global knowledge, yet their influence is frequently omitted from mainstream and academic discussions. Misrepresentation in film and TV. Hinduism is often portrayed in Hollywood and global media as exotic, mystical, or backward. For example, depictions of Hindu gods are reduced to superficial caricatures, or practices like yoga and meditation being wellness trends. Media coverage of Hinduism on campus, off campus, especially during times of political unrest, often focus on negative stereotypes, such as extremism, while overlooking the everyday experiences of peaceful Hindu communities. Violence or discrimination against Hindus in countries like Bangladesh or Pakistan is often downplayed or ignored in international news, perpetuating the idea that Hindus are not subject to the same kind of injustices as other minority groups. Especially on campuses, things like festivals like Diwali, Holi, Navaratri are sometimes celebrated outside of India in ways that are detached from their religious and cultural context. In some cases, the spiritual significance is completely lost, turning them into merely another party or South Asian cultural event, with no mention of the profound beliefs and practices that underpin them. Political and social bias in academia, things like selective activism and exclusion of Hindu voices. On college campuses, there are often movements against discrimination, like social justice campaigns, that exclude Hindu perspectives or fail to address Hinduphobia. In some spaces, when Hindu students speak up about their struggles, they are accused of perpetuating privilege or playing the victim in the name of a larger, often political agenda. The erasure of Hindu genocide and colonial voices. Many scholars, educators, and activists refuse to acknowledge the long history of genocide, forced conversions, and cultural erasure of Hindus under colonial and Islamic rule. When the destruction of Hindu mandirs or the slaughter of Hindu populations is raised, these events are often diminished or attributed to other causes, overshadowing the brutal impact they had on Hindu society. Hindu contribution to philosophy. Hindu philosophies such as Advaita Vedanta, Bhakti, Yoga are often sidelined in global academic discussions. While Western philosophy is given prominence, Hindu philosophy, with its rich texts like the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, is often reduced to simplistic descriptions or portrayed as outdated. Hindu ideas about dharma, karma, moksha, and the nature of the self are rarely explored with the depth they deserve. Indian authors and literary traditions have been largely ignored or dismissed in Western education systems. For example, Raja Rao, Mulkraj Anand, and Ismat Chugtai, whose works delve deeply into Hindu society, culture, and tensions within, are seldom included in mainstream syllabi outside of Indian study departments. This absence leaves students with a very one-dimensional view of Indian culture and history. Hindu practices in the context of global religious movements. There's a big exclusion of Hinduism in interfaith dialogues. While other religions are often included in interfaith dialogues or discussions on human rights, Hinduism is oftentimes excluded. Spiritual leaders and faith-based communities face challenges in having their voices heard or being part of the global conversation on topics like peace, human dignity, and interfaith relations. The same is true when discussing topics like religious freedom in countries where Hindus are minorities. Often their experiences of discrimination are not given the same platform as those of other religion groups. Lastly, dehumanizing us through stereotypes. Very, very prevalent on campuses. The focus on the caste system often leads to a narrow, one-dimensional view of Hinduism, where the entire religion is defined by a social hierarchy that has evolved over centuries. The complexities of social reform and contributions like Hindu leaders such as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Swami Vivekanand, who worked to eradicate caste-based discrimination, are rarely acknowledged in the same breath. Hindus involved in conflicts or riots are often portrayed as perpetrators of violence, without consideration of the full context. For example, the 2020 Delhi riots saw extensive violence against Hindus, but mainstream media reports failed to portray it as a part of a larger pattern of anti-Hindu discrimination. Similarly, reports on Hindu-Muslim conflicts that often fail to provide context about the deep-rooted tensions and historical factors that contribute to such violence. So what does all of this look like on campus specifically? Hinduphobia through erasure manifests in very subtle but extremely powerful ways throughout campuses across the country and across the world. Firstly, the classroom is a battleground. There's heavy academic bias. A student walks into a South Asian studies class expecting balanced discussion. Instead, they find that Hinduism is framed only in terms of caste and patriarchy, while other religions are discussed in their full complexity. They're not taught about Hinduism's philosophy, its rich tradition of debate, its impact on ethics and governance. Even when Hinduism is taught in religious study courses, it's often reduced to outdated colonial perspectives that focus on idol worship, polytheism, superstition, ignoring the deep philosophical debates on dharma, karma, Advaita Vedanta, things that shaped global thought. A study conducted by the Hindu American Foundation found that 60% of textbooks used in American high schools depict Hinduism negatively, often reducing it to caste oppression and superstition. 60%. Secondly, institutional neglect, when Hindu festivals don't matter. At many universities, Hindu students struggle to get even basic institutional recognition for their traditions. Deepavali, one of the most widely celebrated festivals in the world, is not acknowledged in most academic calendars. Students are forced to take exams or attend mandatory classes on one of their more sacred days. Imagine the effect of this happening on Christmas or Eid. Campus dining halls barely accommodate Hindu dietary restrictions, despite catering to other religious needs, making observing fasts and other religious observances very, very difficult. The biggest thing is Hindu student groups face excessive bureaucracy when organizing cultural events, while similar groups for other religions receive institutional support. Next, exclusion from social justice spaces, a very selective fight against oppression. We often hear about anti-racism, decolonization, and the importance of representation, but somehow Hindus don't fit into the same narratives. Why? Because Hindu identity challenges existing ideological frameworks. Hindu students find that their voices are not welcome in conversations about colonialism, even though India suffered one of the longest and most exploitative colonial occupations in history. British rule destroyed thousands of Hindu temples, dismantled indigenous education systems, and left India economically drained. But when Hindus bring this up, they're accused of being nationalistic or revisionist. When Hindus talk about discrimination, they're told they have caste privilege and therefore cannot be victims. Their identity is flattened, simplified, and full-on dismissed. Lastly, the weaponization of stereotypes, when being Hindu becomes a liability. In many cases, Hindu students have been accused of political affiliation simply because of their faith. Their student organizations are labeled as extremist, their concerns are delegitimatized, and their presence is questioned. Would this happen to any other religious group? No. So why is it acceptable when it comes to Hindus? Hinduphobia is not just a social issue at all. It is embedded in academic institutions, policy decisions, and even hiring practices in universities. When it comes to curriculum design, many universities use outdated colonial era texts that depict Hinduism through a Eurocentric lens, focusing on caste oppression while ignoring Hindu contributions to global thought. There's heavy faculty bias. Departments often favor scholars who hold a critical or negative view of Hinduism because it's the norm, while marginalizing Hindu scholars. This creates a massive academic echo chamber. Research funding. Studies that focus on Hindu identity and contributions are often denied funding, while those that critique it receive a lot of support. A big example is that dismantling Global Hindutva Conference. Student representation. Hindu student groups often face unnecessary scrutiny and bureaucratic roadblocks when trying to organize cultural events or discussions. As a president of Hindu YUVA, I can vouch for that 110%. The importance of an empowered Hindu youth. Hindu civilization has thrived for millennia due to its ability to adapt, defend, and articulate its identity. However, modern Hinduphobia deliberately seeks to weaken the next generation by one, discouraging Hindu students from participating in leadership roles, often on campus. Two, creating narratives that make them feel privileged and unworthy of support. Three, suppressing discussions about Hindu genocide, colonial oppression, and temple destruction. Now, what kind of an impact does this have on students? The erasure isn't just frustrating, it's full-on psychologically and societally damaging. There's a loss of cultural confidence. Many Hindu students begin to distance themselves from their traditions because they feel like their identity is something to be ashamed of, something to hide. There's a huge mental health toll. Constant invalidation leads to high stress, anxiety, and a feeling of alienation. There's a huge academic disadvantage. When your history is taught inaccurately, you're forced to constantly correct it rather than focus on what you're actually learning. Then there's a huge fear of speaking up. Many Hindu students self-censor, fearing backlash or accusations if they speak about their heritage. We gotta cultivate a generation of Hindu youth who are confident, articulate, and well-informed. This means investing in leadership training, academic advocacy, and media representation to ensure that Hindu students have a voice. So what can we do? Hinduphobia requires more than just acknowledgement. It demands action. If we're to create a future where Hindu students can thrive in academic spaces without the fear of marginalization, we must actively work towards ensuring that their voices are heard, their history is respected, and their identities are validated. Here are some steps we can take. First on, the most simple, raising awareness. The first step in combating Hinduphobia on campuses is spreading awareness of the issue. Many people are simply unaware that bias exists. They may not realize how pervasive and harmful erasure can be. By raising awareness, we ensure that people understand the problem and in turn take action. What does that look like? One is document and reporting incidents, encouraging Hindu students, faculty to report incidents of their discrimination, erasure, or bias to campus organizations, faculty, and administrators. When these things are documented, you can help build a clearer picture of the scope of the problem and highlight patterns of discriminatory behavior that must be addressed. Additionally, universities can be pressured into taking stronger stances when we have that public documentation. You can't hide from facts. Share personal stories. Personal accounts have a profound impact. We should create platforms for Hindu students to share their experiences. This could include hosting workshops, panel discussions, or storytelling events that highlight the realities of facing erasure and discrimination. The more people hear about these first-hand accounts, the more likely they are to understand the need for change. Educating the general public. Launch public awareness campaigns that focus on the history and teachings of Hinduism, as well as the contributions of Hindus to various fields like science, philosophy, mathematics. This can be done through social media, public talks, exhibitions, and online platforms. By spreading knowledge, we can counteract the stereotypes and incorrect narratives that perpetuate erasure. There's a huge need to advocate for accurate representation in academia. Educational institutions must reflect the depth, diversity, and richness of Hinduism in their curriculum and outreach. As students, faculty, allies, we can push for this change in extremely tangible ways. Firstly is pushing for curriculum changes. Engage with faculty, department heads, university admin to advocate for a more comprehensive and accurate depiction of Hinduism in course content. This could include acknowledging historical events like the destruction of mandirs, the contribution of Hindu scholars, the spiritual practices central to Hinduism. Universities should incorporate Hindu voices in discussions on global religion, history, and culture to ensure a sense of accurate portrayal of Hinduism and its values. Incorporate diverse Hindu perspectives. Collaborate with faculty and administration. Next, very important, is building a strong Hindu community on campus. Everything Hindu YUVA aims to do. Foster an inclusive campus culture. Ensure that Hindu students feel welcome and supported on campus by promoting inclusive practices with open dialogue about Hinduism. Build a support network for students facing Hinduphobia. Act as a platform for promoting Hindu culture, values, and history on campus. Organizing cultural and religious events. All these things contribute to building that wonderful home away from home, that community on campus that can actively combat Hinduphobia and make university a safe space. Next, building allies across campuses. Advocacy shouldn't be limited to Hindu students alone. It's crucial to have allies, students, faculty, admin from various backgrounds who understand the importance of supporting the rights of Hindu students and challenging Hinduphobia. Collaborate with other minority groups. Partner with other groups who are working against discrimination, bias, and erasure. By unifying efforts, you can strengthen the voice of the Hindu community. Encourage public advocacy. Allies can take the lead in public advocacy, writing op-eds, participating in panels, and speaking out on social media to raise awareness about Hinduphobia and the erasure of Hindu voices. Lastly, pushing for accountability and media representation. The media plays a massive role in shaping public perceptions of Hinduism. Therefore, advocating for accurate and respectful media portrayals of Hindu culture, religion, and history is extremely vital. Demand accountability from media outlets. Create positive media platforms. We have the resources for all of it. It just takes that one step forward. Through these actions, we can create a space where Hindu students are empowered to embrace their identity, where they're heard, seen, and respected, and where Hinduphobia through erasure no longer gets or goes unchecked. The journey is not going to be easy, but it's one that must be taken. I am the future. My grades group, we are the future, the next generation of this country, of Hindus. With oppression on all sides from various groups, governments, institutions, how am I meant to contribute to a country's future, to a country's greatness if I'm not allowed to speak? How am I meant to go to school every day knowing I won't be given the same treatment as others? How am I meant to want to raise my kids in a country and have them call it home when everything around them wants them to be quiet? My First Amendment right is being stripped. Voices are being silenced before they even have the chance to be heard. Future generations are being given societal handicaps before even being born. That is erasure. That is Hinduphobia. Dhanyavad.
Dhanyavad, Pranavji, for that honest and incredibly impactful presentation, especially towards the end. The challenges Hindu students face on campus, whether through subtle bias, misrepresentation, or outright exclusion, are real and they deserve acknowledgement. Erasure isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the offhand comments, the lack of representation, or the constant need to explain or defend one's identity. What Pranavji has shown us is that awareness is the first step, but action must follow. By creating spaces like this very conference and speaking up in the face of bias, Hindu students are reclaiming their voices and pushing for campuses that are truly inclusive, not just in theory, but in practice. Let's give another round of thanks to Pranav Patel ji for his leadership and for sharing these crucial thoughts.